This is all through the National Smokejumper Association.
All through the National
So
Smokejumper
talk for a minute about that. So there have been how many people have been smoke jumpers now? Period, roughly.
Okay, I guess the master of the statistics would be Roger Savage, who's maintained the database. But roughly there's been 5,000 over the history of the program. Of that, currently we know that there's about 3,000 that are alive, and of that there are about 1,500 that are members of the association.
And the numbers are getting smaller.
Yeah, the demographic is that way.
Now why is that? Because there's fewer people at the different jump bases, or why is it getting smaller?
Well, I jumped out of Grangeville. I jumped with two guys. Randy Woodward is one, became a doc down in Omaha, and Richard Trinity became a surgeon out of Red Oak, Iowa, and I became a school teacher. A lot of guys were like that they were in there seasonally. They were just trying to pay for their education. There wasn't, there weren't career smoke jumpers per se. The ones that were in there for long periods of time were seasonal for a long period of time, built enough experience where maybe they got a promotion to a squad leader and a foreman and that sort of thing. But they're just, the whole Forest Service wasn't geared up to have a professional wildland firefighting organization. That started to change in the mid-70s and in the 80s, and now the numbers are less because they're not having to train as many.
So the people keep coming back.
Last year they trained about 12. This year they're not going to train any at all.
That's just in Missoula or all the bases?
This was just Missoula.
Yeah.
But Missoula was training for Yellowstone and Grangeville as well as Missoula, and they trained 12. But they're not training any this year.
So I had 69 in my new man class. How many in Missoula? How many did you have in yours? Do you remember?
I think we're right about 65.
Yeah, that's a big difference.
Yeah.
And so then the mortality takes effect at the back end of it, and nobody's coming in on the front end.
Right.
So what kind of thoughts, I mean, you talked to the other guys, what kind of thoughts are there out there about what to do about it? I mean, just suck it up and let it all
Well, I don't
away.
think there is anything that they're going to do about it. One might make a rough comparison to the military situation. If the current administration and Congress follows the trend to reduce costs, the military is going to shrink in size. They're going to do away with littoral ships. They're going to reduce the number of Marines. They're going to reduce the Army size. They're talking about eliminating whole wings of airplanes in the Air Force. I think Warthog comes to mind as one that's going to be eliminated. So they're going to shrink this to almost pre-World War II levels. And I think that's probably what you're going to see. You've got this big demographic bubble, the baby boom that came after World War II. They're on Social Security, and they get Medicaid, and they, and that's costing money, and that cost is going to go up for a period of time, and they can't put the money into other things. So they're going to reduce the military. Well, the Forest Service is no different. You can't just carry larger and larger numbers of folks in the program, and that you're going to shrink it. So now they're getting to a much better trained smoke jumper, much more knowledgeable about fire, and they do a lot of different things for the Forest Service.
Now, how do you know this?
How do I know what?
That they're better trained. How you stay close to the training of the...
Oh, well, I don't... Well, you can do that just if you look at the numbers. For instance, now, if you're going to jump squares, you're going to get 24 training jumps.
Wow. That's a lot.
Yeah, what you and I get, we got 8 jumps, I think, training jumps.
Yeah.
So almost 3 times as many jumps. So you're much better at handling the chute. Now they have technology, for instance, where you can actually be on a computer and be pulling the toggles and the brakes. The chutes are better too. You have better control. You get different panels have different porosities so that you can adjust your forward speed, your turning speeds. You don't get as many malfunctions, line overs, twists, and that sort of thing because they have anti-inversion netting on the rounds. So the technology is better, the training is more extensive, the handling is better because you get more opportunities to practice. I think to some extent even the ships are better, although the old days the Ford was stall speed on the Ford was about 45 miles an hour or something like that. But now the aircraft, there was a period of time even when you were jumping the Doug, you were exiting the aircraft at maybe 80 miles an hour. But now with the aircraft that they have now, the Sherpas and the Otters, they can get that speed down to about 60. So it doesn't throw you around in the air as much. So all that technology has changed to make it better. And the other part of the training is that they're making more training available to wildland firefighters. And they have courses at the university, 1-week courses, 2-week courses. And you go in there and using that red card for certification. Red card, I think it was just an idea when I was jumping that it would just say what your qualifications were, And I think I had one at one point, it said crew boss on it. But they train these guys now to be division leaders, and part of the idea is that the Smokejumper team, you can put a Type 2 team together right there at the base. You can get 2 or 3 of them together at the base. Where you have crew boss and plans boss, who are using the incident command system for logistics and operations and finance and they can put those things together and they can put them on a fire. And they can get things set up so that as the ground crews come in, they've got this whole thing planned and ready to go, and it's an operating system.
That's pretty cool.
So they're doing a lot of things and training these folks.
Now, is your son active doing that stuff?
Yeah, he trained in 2000. First graduating class in the new millennium, I used to say.
So he's been jumping ever since.
Yeah, and full time. So yeah, and he's done well. Right now he's got a crew of 8, and they're in Georgia, and they're doing burning down there in Region 8. And they've been burning in Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas.
A jumper crew of 8.
Yeah, they're the ignition team. As he explains it to me, each administrative unit in the Forest Service has its own burn boss. Although they're burn boss qualified, he is. That burn boss lays out the area to be burned and figures what needs to be done. But then he hires the team. He gets this crew of Smokejumpers to come in, and they make sure that burn is done in the right way, in the right sequence, so that they get the results that they're looking for. They get a clean burn and they get complete combustion, and it doesn't slop out and over and around. So it's a pretty well. Back in the day, if we went out there, we would just have some gopher matches and stick it down in the